Oh, wow.
And I did the couple of things. It's really incredible. Yeah. We didn't know much about it, so I got into DOS. I remember one of my earliest memories is, standing behind my father as he was kind of pulling out this like huge manual and like learning how to like type commands, and it was like typing those commands, and then I would like watch him, and then after he leaves, I'll go and like try those things, and one day I was like, "What are you doing?" I know how to do this. I'll show you. So I knew how to like start doing like do a little programming, do a little scripting. So that's how I got into computers, and I was obsessed. And initially, it sort of brought me into gaming, but then you want to mod the games. Have you ever done any modding?
I've done a few things like kind of textures off and stuff like that. And,
Yeah, that's another thing that is popular about games, like programming.
sure.
So there's like programming. And so I got into that into like modding, like Counter-Strike, and it's really fun. And then it's like this feeling that you can make something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really like compared to my whole life. My mission now with my company, Replit, what we do is like we make this thing called programming. You just talk to your phone, your apps of like ChatGPT, and start supporting for you, like a programming software engineering agent.
Right. So it's like the AI guides you through it.
So that's it. We sort of, the program is typically, think about the idea that a lot of them, but most of the time they're sort of random impact and that beauty of it all. And I thought that was already, just one of the stuff too that doesn't necessarily have to do it. So when I saw, it for the first time, I thought this programming with people with beauty that for my life, a piece of software. And I thought, if you make it available to more people, they can transform their lives.
Why would your dad mess around with computers? Was it doing fun? This episode is brought to you by Visible. I want to let you in on something. Your current wireless carrier does not want you to know about Visible because Visible is the ultimate wireless hack. No confusing plans with surprise fees, no nonsense, just fast speeds, great coverage without the premium cost. With Visible, you get one-line wireless with unlimited data powered by Verizon's network for $25 a month, taxes and fees included. Seriously, $25 a month flat. What you see is what you pay. No hidden fees on top of that. Ready to see? Join now and unlock unlimited data for just $25 a month on the Visible plan. Don't think wireless can be so transparent? So Visible? Well, now you know. Switch today at visible.com/Rogan. Terms apply. See visible.com for plan features and network management details.
Yeah, so my dad is a Palestinian refugee.
Yeah, you're telling me a story.
Yeah.
I want to get into that.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. Don't just go just on that.
Yeah, so my family was from Taipei, which is now in Taipei, and they were expelled in part to 94 years Mecca, where the Palestinians were sort of kicked out, and they went through,
What's the dad respond? How old was he when that was going on?
my father was 20 years, so my grandma, my grandpa, and my uncles were kind of kicked out, and the way they describe that is they try to fight, they try to like keep it home, but they weren't organized. They were just like people were didn't really communication in that place, and eventually they took their hands and told me that if you're down south, you're into Gaza. That's why they just have Gaza and it's like one nation. The people are massive from the land of the right? And then grandfather, okay, was William. We wanted to, have a place where we wanted to be so restaurants were involved with them. And I can see it, but then mom did and just, there's a lot of opportunities there. But I thought it was necessary to move from the city to local life there. And they focus on education and trying to kind of rebuild their life from scratch. So my father, and all my uncles kind of went and got educated. We did 50 intelligence and taking people out of yeah, and I think it's important. Like, I think people have to it's really hard to talk about it. Yeah. It's insane. And no one wants to talk about it. But they talk about it, this is so insane. It's been hard for me in Alaska because, always on the, on the hustling and the fact that they talk. So that's, you get kicked out, so it's really good to say opposition every mother and security even for Israelis but it's just like it sort of reminds me yeah. What do you think about the story? I'm sure. I'm sure it's the single most impactful and they continue to bring things up. Yeah, I don't know what posture and things like that. What's happening now is it's there's two things that are saying. One is the targeting of migrant workers, not cartel members, not gang members, not drug dealers, just construction workers showing up at construction sites, raiding them, guards. Like, really? I was talking to students, college council. You see this video of and then this video of this agent's wife. And that was woman. Yeah. What was her essay about? It was just critical of Israel, right? Yeah, I mean, and that's enough to get you kicked out of the country. There's a long history of anti-criminal South Africa, yeah, and all that. I think there's an inspiration about it. I mean, I don't agree with all that are like there's a lot of radicalism. A lot of young people are radicalism. Which I don't mind those positions as long as someone's able to cover those positions. Right. The problem is these supposed free speech warriors want to silence anybody who has a more conservative opinion. Yeah. That's not the way to handle it. The way to handle it is to have a better argument. It's not American.
It's not American.
I mean, what attracted in this country is from the moment culture is freedom. There's a concept of freedom. There's have to be freedom.
I was watching this psychology student from Columbia. He was a page on Instagram. Most of the women in the country is very good. He went on. It was very important for him. And it was essentially that sexism rises. Behavioral correction response. And he essentially had this Marxist communism rise in first universities, and then it made its way into business, because these people left university and then found their way into corporate America, and then they're essentially interested in it. And then the below that, so that the pushback is the fact. Well, we're talking about whatever the story, but he's talking about whether it's math or it's following sexism is very strong and it's what we're experiencing this country is this continual overcorrection to the left and overcorrection to the right. And then the people that are the left, Anthony Risco, that's very different and very interesting thing. Good job,
that is the training.
Yeah, competition first fashion is what there's a norm because of something that I cover to watch the conditions for another reaction theory.
What the fuck?
Is the idea that capitalism companies who are running companies in today's America is like trending that way where there's like a managerial society. And Silicon Valley is like a reaction to that right now. Where a lot of founders felt like they're losing control of their companies because they're hiring all these managers, and these managers are running the companies like you would run Citibank. And then a lot of founders are like, we need to run those companies like we built them. And Elon is like obviously at the forefront of that.
Right.
I once visited XAI when they were just starting out, Elon's AI company, and there were like 70 people. All of them reported to Elon. They didn't have a single manager on staff. And they would send him an email every week. I was like, what did you get done this week?
Right. Well, that was the outrageous thing they asked people to do at Doge.
Yeah.
People were freaking out. 5 minutes a week. What are the things you accomplished this week? How? They said, all you have to do is respond.
Right.
And they pushed back so hard on being accountable for their work.
Yeah.
But that's government for you.
Yeah.
Government is the grossest, most incompetent form of business.
It's a monopoly.
It's a complete, total monopoly.
Yeah.
Like the way he described some of these things that they found at Doge, it's like you could never run a business that way. Because not only would it not be profitable, the fraud would get you arrested. You'd go to jail for something that's standard in the government.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my opinion of talented people with what Elon and things like that, is that we should be in the free market. I think you know there's a little change in government. As best, we can sort of expect of a government to get out of the way of like innovation, let people, let founders, entrepreneurs innovate and make the market more dynamic. But again, going back to this idea of materialism, like if you look at the history of America, the one like really striking status, like the new firm creation, new startups in the United States have been like trending down for a long time. Although there's all this talk of startups in Silicon Valley and all of that, but in reality, there's less entrepreneurship than there used to be. And instead, we have a system of conglomerates and really big companies and monopsony, which is the idea that like the big banks or BlackRock are owning competitors as well, owning all these companies, and they implicitly collude because they have the same owners, and all of that is sort of anti-competitive. So the market's gotten less dynamic over time, and this is also part of the reason I'm excited about our mission at Replit to sort of the business. Actually, on the way here, your driver Jason is a fireman, and so I was talking about our business, and he does training for other firemen around the country. He flies around and he does it out of pocket and just for the love of the game. And he was like, yeah, I've had this idea for a website so I can like scale my teaching and can like make it known where am I going to be giving a course, put the material online. And we were like brainstorming, potentially this could be a business. And I feel like everyone, like not everyone, but like a lot of people have business ideas, but they are constrained by their ability to make them. And then you try to find a software agency and they quote you sort of a ton of money. And like we have a lot of stories. There's this guy, his name is John Cheney. He's a user of our platform. He's a serial entrepreneur, but whenever he wanted to try ideas, he would like spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to kind of spin up an idea off the ground. And now he uses Replit to try those ideas really quickly. And he recently made an app in like a number of weeks, like 3, 4, 5 weeks, that made him $180,000. So on its way to generate millions of dollars. And because he was able to build a lot of businesses and try them really quickly.
Right, without the big investment.
Without the big investment, without other people, which at some point you need more collaborators. But early on in the brainstorming and in the prototyping phase, test a lot of ideas. And so it's sort of like 3D printing, right? Like 3D printing, although people don't think it had a lot of impact on the industry, it's actually very useful for prototyping. I remember talking to Jack Dorsey about this, and early on in Square, they would, they had this Square device, and it was amazing. You would plug it into the headphone jack to accept payments. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And so they, a lot of what they did to kind of develop the form factor was using 3D printing, because it's a lot faster to kind of iterate and prototype and test with the users. And so software, over time, like when I was, I explained how when I was growing up, it was kind of easier to get into software because you boot up the computer and you get the MS-DOS. You get it really invites you to program in it. Whereas today, you buy a iPhone or a tablet and it is like a purely consumer device. It has like all these amazing colors and does all these amazing things, and kids get used to it very quickly. But it doesn't invite you to program it, and therefore we kind of lost that sort of hacker ethos. There's less programmers, less people who are making things because they got into it organically. It's more like they go to school to study computer science because someone told them you have to study computer science. And I think making software needs to be more like a trade. Like you don't really have to go to school and spend 4 or 5 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn how to make it.
Well, what I'm hearing now is that young people are being told to not go into programming because AI is essentially going to take all of that away. That you're just going to be able to use prompts. You're just going to be able to say, I want an app that can do this. Right? I want to be able to scale my business to do that. What should I do?
Yeah, that's what we built. That's what Replit is. It automates the.
But do you agree with that? That young people shouldn't learn programming, or do you think there's something very valuable valuable about being able to actually program?
Look, I think that you will always get value from knowledge. I mean, that's a timeless thing,
That's a
right?
wise
Like,
thing, right?
you know, it's like you know, you and I are into cars, right? Like, I don't really have to, you know, tune up my car anymore, but like, it's useful to know more about cars. It's fun to know about cars. You know, if something happens, if you know, if I go to the mechanic and he's doing work on my car, I know he's not going to stand. I can understand what he's doing. It is, you know, knowledge is always useful, and so I think people should learn as much as they can. And I think the difference, though, Joe, is that when I was coming up with programming, you learned by doing, whereas you know it became this sort of like very sort of traditional type of learning where you do it's like a textbook learning. Whereas I think now we're back with AI. We're back to an era of learning by doing. Like when you go to our app, you see just you know text prompts, but a couple clicks away, you'll see the code. You'll be able to read it. You'll be able to ask the machine what you did there. Teach me how this piece of code works.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so you know, a lot of kids are learning.
Kids are such sponges. Yeah, they're such sponges. The learning kids already know way more about. I'm like, how did you do that with your phone? My daughter, you're doing this. Yeah, the little thumbs moving 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
How'd you figure that out? TikTok. What?
Dude, the craziest thing is we have a lot of people making software from their phone. They'll spend 8 hours on their phone because we have an app. They'll spend 8 hours on their phone kind of making software.
Wow.
And that's better than watching TikTok, right? It makes you very happy about that. And so
You're accomplishing something.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You're making creation,
just
right?
droning.
The act of creation is divine.
Yeah.
We just announced a partnership with the government of Saudi Arabia, where they want their entire population essentially to learn how to make software using AI. So they set up this new company called Humane, and the Humane is this end-to-end value chain company for AI, all the way from chips to software, and they're partnering with a lot of American companies as part of the coalition that went to Saudi like a few months ago with President Trump to do the deals with the Gulf region. And so they're doing deals with AMD, NVIDIA, a lot of other companies. And so we're one of the companies that partnered with the Humane. And so we want to bring AI coding to literally every student, every government employee, every people. Think about it. It's not just that's going to get something from it. Software. You might use it to do it as everyone can just yeah, and so
This is the best case scenario future. Yeah. As opposed to everyone goes on with the work and economy, the controls everything. Everything's done through automation.
Franklin Creek, Orera wa star, okane kaseku, watashi wa star, kira, watashi wa star, okane kaseku, orera wa star, okane kaseku, watashi wa star,
At the same time, I think it's replacing humans because this
What the fuck?
For example, you can say, and so it's a statement, and that statement is false. So you have a paradox, and therefore the statement is sort of true from the perspective of an observer, like a human, but it is not true from the rather humor. Not really resolved in humans of no humans, and therefore it's their beliefs. If they're
That makes sense. I mean, whatever you whatever allows you to go through whatever allows you to imagine something and then put it together and edit it and figure out how it goes and make correctly with both you and whoever you're trying to distribute it to. There's something to life that's different. You don't really have to do it. I think it's like sort of heuristic that like constantly suggest stuff in heuristic. And it's positive, but I'm not really, against this idea that you build good partner thing and some of it is just it's something that's locked forever. And there are a lot of interesting theories. Like there's this theory that consciousness is kind of like the material world is a projection of objects of consciousness. Yeah, that was very interesting. And then there's a lot of theories that everything is conscious. We just don't have the ability to interact with it. Now, Sheldrake has a very strange view of consciousness. Richard Sheldrake. It's difficult concept. It's called morphic resonance. And I didn't find that too difficult to define it, so I don't butcher it. But there's people that believe that consciousness itself is something that everything has and that we are just tuning into it. Morphic resonance theory proposed by Rupert Sheldrake suggests that all natural systems, including humans, inherit a collective memory of the past instances of similar systems. This memory influences the form and behavior, making nature more habitual than governed by fixed laws. Essentially, past patterns and behaviors of organisms influence present ones through connections across time and space. parapsychology researcher, the whole concept of multiple resonance conjecture that lacks mainstream assessment is invited to the of spirit of science. Of course, yeah, anything interesting. So that kind of we're all philosophers that have a single idea of like this universal consciousness. Humans are like getting a slice of that consciousness. Every one of us is tapping into some universal consciousness. Yeah. Some psychedelic. Think different things. When you take psychedelic, you're getting into that universal consciousness. Yeah. Yeah. That's the theory. They call it the most unknown. I mean, the experience is so baffling that people come back and the human language is lacking any phrases, any words that sufficiently describe the experience. So you're left with a very stale, flat, one-dimensional way of describing something that is incredibly. So it always feels, even though it's just, even though it's really not, it will put you at fault there's nothing about it. You know, it's kind of, it's really important. That's a real problem, I think, with our world, the Western world, is that we have thrown this language, this blanket phrase. We talk about language, interpretation. The word love is a terrible word to describe the argument that affects your consciousness. It affects your consciousness. Because, it's going on. It's going to concentrate. Steroids, and then, you have amphetamines, and then you have opiates, and you have highly addictive things. That's often interesting. Yeah. And then you have psychedelics. I don't think psychedelics is well, but I think it's completely different. It's really hard to get addicted to. It's almost, you can still do this psychologically, I think there's also a real problem with people who use them and think that sometimes they're just from using them, they need some sort of responsive over and that's really like this. I think that the spiritual narcissism that some people, but I think it's very creative and it's classic. And I think it's similar to classic. Many people think it's better than other people because of that. Yeah, I've had with a lot of people who get into psychology. There's this thing out there. And that's what they're going to that's the trap. But it doesn't mean that there's not valuable lessons. I think there's valuable perspective and there's reminding people the potential for spiritual growth, legitimate spiritual growth. So the universe is, healing. So the idea in this 19th Texas, I think, is amazing. So this is also with the help of former Governor Rick Perry, who was Republican. But it's seen what an impact iodine has had on soldiers and all the people that come back to life. Hospital people that being suicidal. We use so many men and women to suicide. And this has been shown to have a tremendous impact. Yeah. And so because of the fact that a guy like Rick Perry stuck his neck out, it was Republican president. He was the last person ever. Right. But because of his experience with recessions and the law of recessions, particularly in this country, it's big to have that in Texas. I think it's a really good first step. Yeah. And the great work that Matt's done. Matt's working with MDMA and with doing the same thing and working with people that have PTSD. There's so many beneficial compounds. Yeah, ketamine is one of the Yeah. So there's quite a bit of research. I don't know long COVID means, because everybody got fucked with what like long COVID was about. I think long COVID is actually that's been a lot of field.
Like a post-viral malaise or fact it's always been there.
Sure. So there's a detrimental effect that it has to your overall biological health, right? You know, your overall mental health. But what causes someone to not rebound from that? What causes someone to rebound for well, mostly it's mental health. You know, other than like extreme biological variability, vulnerability to certain people have to different things. You know, obviously.
Yeah, maybe that's why there's a lot of these young people that illness disease. So yeah, that acts on the body system.
Well, yeah, metformin is one of those anti-aging protocols that Claire uses and all these other people that are into the anti-aging movement.
Yeah. You know, I had this like weird thing happen where I started like feeling fatigue a few years ago, and I would like sleep. The more I sleep, the more tired I get in the morning.
Did you get blood work done?
I got blood work done, and there were some things about it that I needed to fix.
What was off?
Lots of blood sugar in the morning. Yeah, all my life, I can do.
And I could feel like a computer from it?
No, I could feel marginal improvement, but we could not.
Who's that?
It's really good. That's hard to do in Silicon Valley. Yeah, I tend to maybe forcing to do something. Was the same thing now with like talking about outside. I think the more they come at me, the more I want to say things. It's just not always a good thing, but I think do off this way and all this stuff look different and are different.
Well, these are realities in this world that there's a lot of things that people just accept that are not on our towns that are deeply wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the vaccine. I was also informed. It was clear early on that it wasn't harmless. It wasn't. Well, first of all, it wasn't a supplement. It was a very supposed and the oxygen, it's real. I mean, I have friends that have this issue. And so if you're healthy, like why should the vaccine stop this guy? You can still get the virus. I'll tell you why. Money. That's the only reason.
You know the only reason why they wanted to make the enormous amount of money. And the only way to do that is to essentially scare everyone into getting vaccinated. Or do whatever you can, mandate it if agencies, whatever you can, mandate it, do whatever you can, train people.
That's the thing that is really talking about culture today is, and again, evidence of the American dream being possible.
That's not really what I'm about. There's been a reversal.
When something happens, is this but there's this reflection maybe there was a message that popped down.
Yeah, it's not all good. You can first and still, but then a bunch of people who demand for them.
I think Putin is a good player said that. I want you to want to trust the other. So, this one, demonstrate your consumption. Like when you go buy a rational disorder, I think they're naive about the collection specifically. So they inherit these things and become really aggressive.
Yeah, it becomes a religious thing.
But these are like lifestyle benefits. When there are voices like yours and others that feel this that and you could like a big book, always regret that for you, but like, you know, it's not and then let's open it up and maybe people can talk about it a little bit and story opens up and now there's a discussion. So I think, you know, I say like one thing was founded, but also the flip side of that was this collection. And again, with the opening up of platforms like Twitter and other, by the way, a lot of people popular. That's actually I think that Facebook and those are very, you know, very, let's say, I think we always out to know about it, but there's a lot of people in the company that didn't.
Yeah.
And there's suppression. But then now it's the other way around. I would say with the exception of the question of Palestine and Gaza. But even that is better.
It's some good stuff. It's available. It's not innovative.
It's some weird. I've been reading.
What?
They're sincere and they're looking at what's happening in Gaza and they're seeing this is not probably it should be for life. That's part of to open up.
I think that would be the primary way people look at it. Just the way a lot of people opposed the Vietnam War in the late 60s, but it was, you know, you would get attacked. And I think now people realize, like, that was the correct response. And I think in the future people will realize the correct response was, like, this is not, October 7th was awful. Absolutely.
Obviously.
Terrible attack.
Mm-hmm.
But also, what they've done to Gaza is fucking insane.
Insane.
And if you can't see that, if you can't say that, and your response is, Israel has the right to defend itself. Like, what are you talking about? Against what? Children?
Right.
Against women and children that are getting blown apart? Against aid workers that are getting killed?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, we can't have a rational conversation if you're not willing to address that.
Yeah. I think their heart is